We're in a day and age now where there's a very big transition with the energy that's going on, especially in the online world and where people are looking to seek information. And it's crazy. If we rewind back a couple of years to when online first started, there was a lot of people who were in the authority space telling you what to do, and everyone who had seen anyone online who had any form of competence and conviction behind what they say, we just took it as gospel. And it was the same for me. Now, if you don't know who I am, my name is Gill, and I've also now been coaching in the online space for the last couple of years in the fitness space and personal development space. Okay, and before I even got into it, it was anyone online was an authority. And I think that we've seen over the last couple of years is that there's a lot of people who've jumped on this online train, jumped on this coaching and mentoring train, and basically just used and abused it, and developed a lot of trust issues now with society. And I think people are really starting to catch up now. We are hitting a point, especially now with certain world events, where people will realize that maybe everything that was being said wasn't necessarily true, if you know what I'm saying. And this has been happening in this last year, interestingly enough. And if you've been paying attention, you will see that we're almost getting new leaders in this space. We're getting new people who are starting to take reins of who's teaching certain concepts to the world. And the people who had started are starting to disappear. And they're starting to get exposed, so to speak. And not exposed in a way that's crazy or anything, but just humanized, right? Where they're not necessarily gospel, and we can start to develop our own independence and intuition of whether someone is valid or not in their teachings. And that's something that has been extremely interesting in this space, which is that, you know, when I first started and I was getting mentors and coaches online, it was the whole dream of, being in the online world, the dream of being in shape and making a certain amount of money to complete your life. That was fed to me. And something interesting happened because I embarked on a big journey, and I only realized now, after years, that I got indoctrinated quite a bit. Unfortunately, I had picked up certain mentors in the space, and my mindset, as much as I developed in those areas, fitness and money and business and helping people, I did develop it. It was missing the point. It was missing the point of why I was doing all of it. And that was basically what wasn't ever told to me, and the message that got sold to me was that all of these things would fix the problem. And I remember I had this very big vision of myself who was like jacked in shape, just like that popular dude. And it just seemed like being that guy had all the answers, having the body, it would have had all the answers. And here I am now. I mean, I guess you could say I've got the body, yeah. And I'm not gonna say I have all the answers. I am at a point now to where I've realized a lot, and I'm able to live life in a very fulfilling manner, so to speak. But when I had the physique, and let's say before my mental maturity at my current point in time, not saying that I'm perfect, but I've developed a lot more awareness. But I had the physique at one point, but I still didn't have that sense of fulfillment I was looking for, that confidence that I was looking for. And it's because I thought those things were the answer, but they were like areas of my life that could have used improving. But I was still in shape. I was still walking around looking good externally, but I had neglected the internal. What was actually happening within? What were my deep insecurities? What were my deep fears? What was motivating me to do all of those things? And it was a lot of loneliness. It was a lot of not feeling good enough to have love. It was not feeling good enough to get the attention of certain people. It was me feeling less than people around me. And all of those things that I was trying to do was to try to be better than, right? And the reason why a lot of trust issues nowadays have arisen is that marketers kind of fed on those insecurities, unfortunately. And it does work, I get it. However, for the consumer, including my old self, it can mislead the truth, all right? And the reality is, me being in shape, me making a certain amount of money, me coaching people and helping people, I fucking love it. And I wouldn't take it back for the world. It just wasn't going to quote unquote fix the deep feeling inside that I had, that I wanted to fix. That feeling where you wake up, you're on your own, and there's just a deep feeling of like a sorrow. Lonely, dreading the day, negative thought patterns. And those things aren't just going to get fixed off of external validations. Getting in shape and getting your body right, and I believe they're all pieces of the puzzle. But there's still another piece, which is looking internally and understanding why you feel that way. And this is what I'm incredibly passionate about now, and I'm really focused on helping people with, because I put so much effort building myself in so many ways, but neglecting this part. And I see it so many times with people who in the online world, and being fed certain dreams and believing that it's all the answers. And I can see, not that it's bad to have those things, but I can see that their sense of self-esteem is tied to whether they have the thing or not. And that's dangerous. It's very dangerous. It's the belief that you are not enough until. That's dangerous. You know, it took me maybe 10 years to really understand that we're worthy by default. And the whole chase to get the things to feel worthy, it was flipped. That to even get those things and enjoy them, to even get them to enjoy them, you would have already had to feel worthy in the first place. Because if you didn't, you'd find ways to also lose it anyways. And this happens a lot. This happens when, let's say for example, someone gets a girl, they don't feel deserving of her love because they don't love themselves, right? They'll find ways to sabotage it because they don't believe that she loves him, because he's in disbelief that anyone would love him because he doesn't see it. He doesn't love himself. And it's things like that it's almost like your foundation. And until you learn to recognize that, you're gonna keep having that deep sense of not being good enough. It will haunt you. And it's so funny, when I truly am feeling my best, it's when I first of all recognize that that's an old pattern. It's a subconscious mind, which I've got so much content talking about how to rewire that. If you haven't joined my Mindset Mastery newsletter, I've got a 30-day newsletter where every day I lay out mindset tips. It's very fucking useful. Very fucking useful. I recommend in the description to opt in with that. It wasn't until I could understand that we were worthy by default, understand how the world works. I recommend reading the book Conversations with God by Neil something. Just look it up, you'll find it. But then also did the habits that I knew were aligned with my goals. Because you can still have goals and not be motivated from a deep and dark place. It doesn't have to be. This is the thing, right? Like, people think it always has to be a deep and dark place. Now, there is for a lot of people. You just have to be careful of where that may lead eventually, and unless you've got that deep awareness to prevent that from affecting other areas, it will affect the other areas if you don't be aware of it and work towards navigating that in a different direction. But the great thing is when you have the awareness and you let go of those fears and insecurities, and you you actually start to take action from a positive place, from more of an empowering place. And I think that's also the answer, is because if you have a deep sense of not feeling good enough, you can logically tell yourself, oh, I know that I'm good enough, logically, theoretically, but until you actually action the steps towards your goals to prove to yourself and experience that you are good enough to do those things, you won't get the enjoyment out of life, which is the contrast of not having because you don't feel good enough to having because you do feel good enough. And if you don't allow yourself to experience it physically through the actions and the daily habits, then you will never get to truly live that purpose of contrast, to realize how powerful you really are. And it's not enough just to, it's not that it's not enough just to know, but you're depriving yourself of the experience of knowing. Because knowing theoretically, we all know theoretically how to do things, but what's the difference between theoretically knowing and then actually acting and experiencing and being? It's actually experiencing it that is the difference, rather than knowing it. So I find that there's this awkward, not awkward, but there are some people out there who say, like, understand where it's coming from and it's not good, and make sure that you are coming from a good place, and blah, 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 blah. They do all the mindset work, the internal work, and they're constantly in this state of healing, which you don't need to be healed. There's no healing. You're not broken. It's all in here that the thoughts come from. It's just a recognition and not to act through that place. That's the only difference. And people focus on the negative so much that they forget that the whole point is to experience the opposite, which means to let go, break through, and experience what isn't that. And that contrast of the not having to the having, the perception of that, is what makes you feel fucking alive. What makes you realize how powerful you are. But nowadays people get so much validation off of knowing that they can without doing shit. Oh man, you gotta do shit. You gotta do it. And it's great to sit and just wonder and, oh yeah, like visualize. Hell yeah, visualize. Important. But act through the visions. Like step into it. Just walk through that path. Don't deprive yourself of that. So, yeah, I mean, going from when I started this conversation to now, it's like, instead of thinking that that is the answer, the actual thing is the answer, which is the money, the girls, the status, the fame, whatever it is that you want, instead of thinking that is the answer is actually the experience of being the person who has those things. That's the difference. It's experiencing the person, which is fucking you. And recognizing, holy shit, it was always within me. I just had to act as that person, be that person now. I had to believe that I could be that person and act through them. Which is not a separate thing to you, to recognize that it is within you. You have to just choose to be that person, that version of you. Because we all have an endless amount of versions of ourselves, and you know it because you've been a version of yourself you're not proud of, and I have too. But I've been versions of myself I'm fucking proud of. What's the difference? It's not that I couldn't, it's that I stepped into that person at that point in time. And the more that you can keep stepping into that person, the more time you spend as that person. And who's to say you aren't? But the only difference, the only reason why you're not stepping into that person is some weird doubts or fears or insecurities and lack of belief that you are that person. From opinions and things that you see in comparison and judgment, it's all made up. It's all made up. It's just your ability to believe and act through. And the only reason that you're not is because you don't believe it in this very moment. If you really believed it in this very moment, you would just be. Because it's your choice, it's your preference to be that person. The only reason you're not is because there's some limiting belief there. Well, I'm not because my location, because my friends, because blaming external things. It's all within you right fucking now. It's all within you now. I'm telling you, the world is changing, leaders are changing, and people are starting to recognize the bullshit, and people are starting to recognize the false dreams. You know, people are selling their products promising you that it's all the answers. I'm not promising you it's the answer. It's part of the process. There's benefits to it. But ultimately you have the answer. And until you realize your own power, you're going to keep relying on gurus to tell you what it is. And you could say it's paradoxical because I'm a coach, but I make it my mission to make sure my clients know that they have the power. I'm just guiding them to recognize their own strength. That's what I'm fucking talking about. Because I'm not better than you, and you're not better than me. We're the same. We're from the same place. We both have the potential to choose what we do. And choose who we are in each and every moment. So let this empower you. Genuinely, let this empower you, man. I've got your back. But have your own back. That's fucking living. The contrast of not feeling like you're enough to then proving to yourself that you can and living it. Don't deprive yourself from living it.